Hello, welcome to our video assignment. Today we're going to be talking about Ghost Dog, directed by Jim Jarmusch in 1999. I'm Mars, and I use they, them pronouns.
I'm Melanie, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Kalani, and I use any pronouns.
I'm Evelyn, and I use she, her pronouns. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the movie Ghost Dog. As Mars mentioned, it's directed by Jim Jarmusch. It's a 1999 film, and it's starring Forrest Whitaker, who plays Ghost Dog, and he's a contract killer who has pledged his loyalty to, as a samurai warrior, to Louis, who's played by John Tormey, who saved his life when he was younger. And the film basically follows Ghost Dog as he attempts to escape assassination after a contract killing gone wrong. So yeah, I feel like we should start off talking about score, because I feel like that's a really important part of this film. I definitely noticed, I mean, it's pretty obvious, like most of the score, the score first of all was like the music for the movie was written by RZA. Like all the music was created by him, as we know. And so it kind of followed a lot of like a hip hop rap / R&B kind of vibe the entire time, which I thought was a really good addition to like kind of the grungy feel of the film. Also something I personally noticed was like the repetitiveness of the score and of the music. I feel like all the music had a lot of like really repetitive sounds, which I feel like kind of went nicely along with the movie itself, because I feel like there's a lot of repetition in the movie as well, just with like symbolism, like birds constantly coming up over and over again, and like a lot of the voiceovers of like different samurai teachings. So that was something I thought was really cool about the film.
Yeah, I did notice that they used repeated clips of like, I don't know if it was the same clip of the dove flying, but it was a very similar one for like transitions between scenes, and the score behind that was the same song every time. Which I noticed.
So all the use of drums in I believe every song in this score, at least the ones that were not like the ones that he put on in the car, or like when he was using a CD, any of the other songs always had like a very strong beat with drums. And I feel like that just showed how he was like very much keeping to his own beat, like he was doing what he needed to do and like walking his own life. And I felt like the drums kind of symbolized that.
Something I noticed in the score was towards the end of the movie, when he was in the car towards to kill the people that were in the house when they were watching the cartoon. When he was in the car on his way there, the usual like hip hop music was just a little different and a little like eerier and stranger, and I think it's because we didn't expect him to kill any more people. At least I didn't think so.
I think it was a lot more like lo-fi, kind of like that type of music when he was in the car that last time, and it felt more like, I don't know the exact word for it, but kind of like more old school than like the initial like rap and hip hop. I think that was a really good choice to combine that with the events that were about to unfold. I agree with you. I think that was really cool. Also, just like the soundtrack in general, because we know the score is kind of like a part of the soundtrack. I noticed a lot of like focused noise, and what I mean by that is just kind of, I feel like the film in general was fairly quiet. Like I feel like there wasn't tons of loud noise or tons of loud dialogue or anything like that. And so I feel like a lot of the soundtrack was very focused. And I feel like, just like I said, in general, the film was like pretty quiet. I don't know if you guys have any ideas of like the reasoning behind that, because I would love to hear if you guys had ideas, or if you have anything else to say, obviously.
I did notice that in the scenes where there's something very intense going on and the dialogue is very important, they're making big decisions, talking about killing people. For example, the scene where Ghost Dog threatens Louis and he shoots him just to like make it look like he got away. There was no music whatsoever in that scene. When Louis goes around the table with the old guys, Ray, that whole group, there's like no music in the background at all. So definitely just in serious situations, and I think it does put a focus on the dialogue and what the characters are saying.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time, unless it was like intentional that there was music in the background, it was either really soft sounds like the pigeons in the background, or sometimes when he was walking there was sounds of dogs barking in the background, which I thought was interesting because ghost dog. But I just feel like you said, overall it was like a pretty quiet movie,
And I feel
not
like
a lot going on.
Yeah. And I feel like it was really, because it was so quiet and like they used music and noise so like directly, it was very easy to tell when something was a diegetic sound versus non-diegetic, because I feel like with a lot of the diegetic sounds and like music and whatnot, it always had like a certain quality. So like for the cartoons, they always sounded like you were listening to them on the TV. And when Raymond was talking like through the ice cream truck, it was always very like tinny, and you could like tell it was through like a little walkie-talkie thing. And so it was like there weren't many like uses where it was like, oh, we're gonna see if we can mess with them. It was very obvious when it was diegetic and when it was not.
Yeah, I agree. And I also feel like, just kind of going along with that whole kind of like silent soundtrack vibe, I thought it was interesting how for the first, like, I would say like the first act or maybe the first like 30 minutes of the movie, Ghost Dog didn't speak, like he didn't have any dialogue unless it was the voiceovers where he was talking about like the different teachings of the samurai. And something I thought was really interesting was how the first time we heard him speak or like have dialogue like in the actual movie and not just the voiceovers was when he was speaking to Perline, who is the little girl. And I thought that was interesting just because I feel like that kind of gave him some sort of, because he comes off obviously as this kind of like big scary guy, like he's a contract killer, like, you know, he's going around killing people obviously. But when his first words that were kind of spoken in the movie were to like a little girl and a dog, that kind of gives him like this air of innocence almost, which I think is interesting because I feel like they kind of were showing like there's two sides to his character, which I think is pretty obvious throughout the film or in the film. Not supposed to say that, sorry. But I think that using his first like lines of dialogue like towards the little girl and the dog just kind of back up that other side of his character, especially because he met Louis in the first place because he was kind of like saving his life from those other guys who were trying to kill him. So it was just like cool to me that the filmmaker was able to show like those kind of dueling sides of his personality in that way. I just think the dialogue, yeah, you go, what you're gonna say.
I think that what you're saying is very true. And I also think that the director managed that through the use of the pigeons and how you would always hear a little pigeon cooing in the background. Like whenever he was on screen, whenever the pigeons were around him, Ghost Dog, I mean, you know, you had the little pigeon cooing and you could see how he would like pet them. They were very important to him. So it adds like, you know, onto the talking to the little girl and all that. Like,
yeah. And actually bringing that back to the music, something I found interesting was that when in the scene where he walks up to the roof to like where he lives and he sees that all the pigeons have been killed, the same music plays there as it does when he dies at the end. So I thought that was really I thought that was really like it connected them because it was so important to him that like these birds were alive. And so like it's almost like a part of him died then and then it like continued when he actually died.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I didn't notice that at all.
I think that also points to how, I don't know if I got this wrong, but I think that when the pigeons were killed was really like his snapping point. Because at that point he was just taking them all out and he did seem to accept that he had to die. Like talking to Louis, he said, it's better me than you. So
yeah. And I think also going back to the birds and the pigeons and everything, what was cool about the film to me is that like there wasn't a lot of like ambiance or like ambient noise. I feel like a lot of it was just bird sounds. Like I feel like for the most part there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of like slamming of doors, or there wasn't a lot of like weather noises or like street noises. It was like mostly bird noises. Which I feel like just in general the birds kind of represented, like I was saying, like kind of that air of innocence that Ghost Dog has around him, but also just like obviously birds can represent like freedom, and like there was doves at some part and those kind of represent like peace. And so again, kind of that like dueling personality that he has.
Yeah. I think also like the lack of like intricate and like overlapping sounds in the background is also resemblant to him, and how he's a very simple character in the sense that he knows what he wants, and he's not going to change his values about that. There's not really a lot of complexity that we can see going on in his brain. He's never chaotic.
Yeah. And also like with his connection to the birds and like the lack of most ambient sounds except for bird noises, I noticed when like in those shots where that one specific carrier pigeon is like in the sky and it's just the bird, that you could hear the flapping noises of the wings, even though like obviously you wouldn't be able to hear that in real life. And I wrote it down as like possibly being Foley because like obviously you're not going to capture that in the moment when you're filming the bird, but like you could hear specific flapping, and I was thinking that could possibly be like someone in a studio making a flapping noise.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just the Foley, because other examples of Foley could have been like the gun noises and stuff like that. And I think that even the sounds of the guns like had kind of, they weren't silent obviously, but like he had like a silencer on, Ghost Dog had a silencer on his gun. And I feel like even the Foley was like very like low, like low timbre, if you will, kind of like there was like a lack of there's kind of like a lack of echo going on, which I think was obviously like on purpose to making the Foley like also kind of like that low volume, because I think most of the time Foley is kind of loud and like exaggerated. So I just thought that also like added to the whole kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, how like the soundtrack in general was just very like kind of chill and not like super loud surprising noises.
And when you said that, oh sorry,
go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, well when you said that, I just thought of how like even the footsteps I noticed like weren't very like sharp and like distinct. They were almost like the timbre was like muffled and like but Mars, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that we've been talking a lot about the quiet aspects of the movie, but I do think that there are some important scenes where it gets loud, like when we first see him pull out his samurai sword and do his whole thing on the roof. The background, the soundtrack gets very loud, the amplitude goes way up, and you can also hear Foley in that because the sword swishing noises are in there. So I do agree that it's quiet at some parts, but I also think that they very intentionally have louder and quieter scenes, because obviously his samurai sword was very important to him and he liked his little routine there.
And the he also makes that noise, like the swishing samurai sword noise, when he does that thing with his gun where he like twists it and like puts it in his belt. Like it makes that same noise, and so it's definitely like that was very intentional to like be his samurai sword.
And
oh no, go ahead.
I have a question for you guys.
Oh yes, please.
I noticed that in the very beginning of the movie, when we first see Ghost Dog walking around in the streets, we're hearing lots of bells in the score, in the soundtrack. And I do think that they're non-diegetic. Like I think they're an actual part of the score and not like a bell in the background. So I also noticed that those bells came up when he was looking at that weird dog. And I'm not gonna lie, I am confused about the dog situation. I don't know where the dog came into play. Anyone have any insight about what that could possibly mean.
I mean,
Ghost
I kind of
dog?
feel like that's what I was gonna say.
yeah.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
the most obvious answer, is just like the dog is representative of like who he is, kind of. Also, especially because like ghost dog, like you see the dog like one time and it's super random,
Yeah.
or maybe
Yeah, I think,
twice.
like, twice.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, twice, and it's like super random. It doesn't have an owner. It kind of is just like there.
Yeah.
So I feel like
yeah,
maybe-
well, something that I noticed is like when you the second time you see the dog, it's during like the full moon scene, and in the background you can hear like other dogs howling, but this one doesn't. So it was kind of like representative of him, like he's like that silent.
that was
Level.
good.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about dogs, but was it a pit bull?
I think so.
Okay,
Could've
because
been.
that's what
maybe
I
like
thought.
a mix
But
too. I don't know.
you know, like
Sorry to the dog
stereotypical
lovers.
like pit bull stereotypes,
Mhm.
like scary on the outside, like no one really wants to go near them, but they're really, really, really sweet pit bulls. And
Yeah.
so like, and you know, ghost dog isn't what he seems on the outside. So
Yeah,
that also might
definitely.
be something.
I love that interpretation. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's I agree as well. I also have a question to pose to the group, to the Muppets. I don't really know how to formulate this like into a question, but I essentially was just the whole like Raymond, who was the French guy who ran the ice cream truck, his whole character, like I liked him a lot, and like I thought it was like really intriguing that he existed in the film. But like I was questioning the whole time, like, what was the purpose of making his character French? Or not, he isn't French, but he speaks French.
Right.
And like, what's the purpose of them like talking to each other, but like they don't understand one another? So it's kind of like, what is the point almost? And I just thought that was super strange and kind of like, I wasn't really sure. I don't know if you guys have any insight or like any ideas as to why that was like the choice to make him like not speak English, basically. If anyone has any thoughts about that.
I think part of it was definitely comic relief,
Yeah.
because
Definitely.
whenever there was like a part where like he would say something like, oh, I'm going to the store, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I need to go to the store, and it was like it was just like that sort of. I think that was pretty funny, but I don't know if anyone has any other insight.
I noticed it's definitely comedic value because well, that might be just a surface level interpretation. I don't know if there's something deeper, but I definitely noticed in the scene where he was like reading out in French to the little girl, and like the overlapping dialogue, it just like showed her face like I have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know how to play chess? It's definitely very heavy on the comedy, but I don't know if there's any other reason.
I mean, I think
kind of oh, you go first.
Oh, okay. Like we were talking earlier about how for like the whole intro, Ghost Dog doesn't really speak until he's talking to Perline. But I think like how he talked about, oh, like this is my best friend, and she's like, do you understand him? And he's like, no. It's like he's not one to really talk, and so like language doesn't seem to be like, it doesn't seem to matter in the end, because like they do have a connection even though they literally can't understand what the other person is saying. Like they can always interpret sort of like what the vibe is with each other, and there's obviously like an emotional connection when he dies. So I think it was kind of like he doesn't really talk to that many people, but he doesn't necessarily have to, because he has like a really strong presence.
I like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good answer to like that whole question, just because like you saying that made me think about the fact that just I feel like that's a huge premise of his character and of the film, is just the fact that like his connections are what matter. And it's also like, I kind of lost my train of thought, but just along the lines of like you're saying he can make this connection with somebody regardless of language, like regardless of, and I feel like he's making these strange connections with everyone. Like he's friends kind of with Perline, who's like a little girl, and like his closest companions are like these birds, and it all seems very odd for the way that he looks. Like if you just saw him on the street, like you would not guess that he's like a bird guy who's besties with like a little girl, like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a really interesting way to interpret that. And I also just feel like in general, there's like a really satirical kind of like aspect to the film. And I feel like a lot of what happens is like serious, but also like not really serious. Like it's kind of poking fun at its own seriousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because even in like the death of the movie, And I don't know, like just at towards the end when he goes into the house with all the like mobsters, like all the mob guys who are trying to kill him, and he kills Ray, who's his daughter Louise. She's like sitting there. I don't know. I just felt like that scene also like felt kind of satirical to me. I don't really know how exactly, but just like her reaction and like the way that the whole thing went down felt very like it was serious, but it also wasn't. So I feel like that's kind of a premise that goes along with everything.
I do agree with that, especially because at the end, before the final shootout, he literally says it's the final shootout. Like the movie has this level of self-awareness, and the way Val, the like lead, I don't know if he's the lead mob guy, but he says, oh my gosh, he has one line where he's like, it's some stereotypical like term, like the Italian, like like they have the accents. It's definitely a specific timbre.
Yeah, I also like definitely I do think like as you were talking about like self-awareness, like their use of cartoons is like it really hammers that in, because in the scene that you were talking about where he goes into the like mansion and he shoots everybody, like it shows Luis watching a cartoon of like someone going in with two guns and shooting a ton of people. So it's like it's obviously like sort of that funny like, oh yes, like this is serious, but also like we're gonna kind of poke fun at it.
Also like suggesting the fact that like this, like the movie kind of follows this not super strict but like plot line that's like been done before, and I feel like they kind of like acknowledge that the fact that he's like, this is the shootout, and like this is what's gonna happen, here it is in the cartoon, like it's kind of like like this has been done before, like this is kind of like your typical almost like samurai-esque type film. So I think that's cool, like that self-awareness like you were saying as well.
And also going back to the cartoons, I noticed pretty much every scene using the cartoons, the music within the cartoon, the diegetic sound was actually contrapuntal to the scene, because the first time we see the cartoons, it's Neil's, did I already forget his name? His daughter, the lead
Ray.
Ray. I don't know where that came from. when we first see Ray's daughter, in the scene where her friend there gets shot and he takes her book, the cartoon music is peppy and happy, and you know, it's very upbeat, and then he comes in and shoots him, and pretty much every cartoon scene with her in it goes wrong. So it's definitely
and also like at the end when Ghost Dog goes to like the secondary mobster, I think Valero is his name, when he goes to his house to shoot him through like the sink, like through the pipes, he's listening to like this fun like rap R&B. Yeah, exactly. And he's like dancing along and he's having fun. And then like you can hear it also like when Ghost Dog is like opening the pipes and everything. And it's just like that extremely like, again, it's contrapuntal because he's going to kill him, and it's this like fun, like upbeat type of music.
Also, in addition to this is like kind of changing gears a little bit, but just kind of going off the fact that he was listening to that kind of like rap music when he was killed by Ghost Dog. I think that there's 100% kind of like a racial undertone to the film, just considering the fact that like the main character is this like big black guy, kind of stereotypical, and like it's all these like white Italian guys. And I found like kind of to go along with the sorry, I just got a Zoom notification.
That was scary.
I know. I thought it was gonna like stop recording, and I got
very scared.
Me too.
All right.
Okay. So anyway, so I was just gonna say that kind of adding to the satirical element of the film, I feel like the super casual use of the N-word and like stereotypes regarding like Black people that the Italian guys, like the white guys in the film, were like projecting, but like that contrasting with the fact that they were like listening to rap music and like they were talking about this Black guy and they're like, oh yeah, he has one of those names like those rappers that we like blah 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 blah, and like singing this music and stuff. Just the fact that they would like be using slurs and be like talking bad about Black people, but then going around and like appreciate like using their culture. It's kind of just like the stereotypical like racist move that white people do, where it's like, oh, like we don't, you know, I don't want to associate with Black people and I'm going to use slurs and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to turn around and like use their culture to my advantage and like enjoy their music and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that was kind of a way of like poking fun at just like white people in general, but like in this specific instance. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to like kind of the racial element, but I just thought that was definitely like prominent and worthy of speaking of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. Sorry, I had something to say.
No, it's okay.
I might have lost it.
Sorry.
We've covered so much.
Yeah, does anyone have
no, I'm
like...
trying to think of like
yeah, if anyone has any like extra questions or anything they just want to like throw in, definitely go for it now, because I feel like we kind of have hit a lot of the stuff that we had to talk about.
I noticed in the scene I was talking about earlier where Ghost Dog threatens Louis, he is like, Louis is talking, there's no music in the background, and the ambient noise like picks up amplitude a little bit as like the wind picks up as he says like one of us has to die. And I also noticed the same use of like wind in the background noise right before Ghost Dog is shot, when he's saying goodbye to his friend at the ice cream truck. Raymond, whose name I know. I thought that the use of wind there was definitely to symbolize the like swell of emotions and the impending death of the scenes.
Also just how I mean, this is kind of like, this isn't a super deep detail, but just how when Ghost Dog was shot, like, and he was shot 3 times, I think, by Louis, like in the chest, and he like kept walking forward. It just like reminded me of maybe more towards the beginning of the film when like some of the different like samurai, I don't know if I should call it rules, but just like kind of the passages that Ghost Dog read through the voiceover. One of them was like, oh, if you have pride and if you're like a strong warrior, then like when you die, you like won't really die. And I thought that was interesting just because I thought that was cool and important to the movie, because I feel like it came back in that at that point and was like literally showing that like since he's, you know, been like a strong samurai warrior and has kind of like followed the whole like code of conduct, like he won't really die. Also just like his memory lives on. Like that's cheesy, but like it's true, you know. Obviously like especially through Perline, who like has his book at the end and is like reading about the samurai and everything. I thought that was like kind of cute.
Yeah. And I think also like it's the way that like it goes from him narrating those passages to her at the end, like she does it in the same tone of voice, but like obviously like her voice is higher, like it has a higher frequency, so she like you're not expecting it, but it's still like it almost has his spirit in it, even though like it's very different. She's still reading it with the same tone of voice, and I thought that was very nice because like she's sort of passing on the message.
Along the same lines, I couldn't help but feel so bad for Perline at the end because of the trauma of seeing a friend and a figure she was looking up to die. And it reminded me of a theme of a book I read called The Bluest Eye in high school, just that the amount of trauma and the stuff that Black people go through at the hands of white people and just in general in America, it's definitely a theme that was touched on, because then, you know, all the stuff that Ghost Dog got wrapped up with and like how he was almost murdered when he was a kid, and that trauma followed him throughout his life. Now Pauline watching this is gonna remember it, and it will definitely fundamentally change her. So yeah, I thought that was
definitely. Also, how Louis's character kind of goes in the beginning. Were you going to say something else?
No, I wasn't going to say anything else.
I was just going to say how at the beginning, I feel like how Louis's character kind of goes from in the beginning as like the white savior kind of character, because he saves Ghost Dog from all those guys, to at the end being like Mars was saying, how he goes to being this like source of trauma for this little Black girl, like just like the entire scope of like how white people act in the lives of Black people, and specifically our country, but kind of everywhere, how it goes from that like white savior complex to being the source, like you said, of all that trauma and everything, is definitely like a cool character arc, or not cool, kind of sad, but you know what I mean, like reflective of society, definitely. Yeah.
All right, I feel like that's a good overarching concept to end on.
Has it been 30 minutes? Do we know?
I think so.
I don't know how to chat. Does it have to be exactly?
I think it's good.
Well, we still need to do.
But we still need to do
our segment.
Forget.
Melanie, would you like to introduce our segment?
Yeah. Okay, so our segment, at the end of every session that we do, we will be saying what our favorite outfit was in the movie, and we're going to call it Fit Check. And Fit Check, and we're gonna say what our favorite outfit was in the movie and why. So, should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so my favorite outfit. I had two favorite outfits. One of my favorites was the one that Raymond was wearing when Ghost Dog died. Because it was cute. That sounds awful, but it was like blue. He had a little sweater vest thing going on. He had a little white overcoat over it. He looked really good. And then also, I really liked how at the end of the movie, Pearline was wearing pajamas with bears on them, because throughout the movie, the motif of Ghost Dog being like a bear, I just thought it was a cute little add-on. But yeah, that's it. Fit check.
Okay, my favorite fit was when we first see Ray. You said his name was Ray. Don't know why I keep forgetting his name. When we first see his daughter, and Ghost Dog first decides to spare her, she's wearing a red slip dress, and I just think that's really cute. Love the color red, and I love slip dresses, so that was my favorite outfit.
Okay, Fit Check. I went with like background characters, because I love to notice background characters and what they're wearing. But the three like guys that Ghost Dog talks to at the beginning, where they say, "Oh, hey, Ghost Dog," like they know him. They are wearing like these fully red monochrome outfits. They're baggy. They have like some gold chains on. And I just thought that was like a really good look. And then my second favorite was at the end, it's actually RZA himself, but he's wearing like a full camo outfit, which kind of like contradicts like the actual like bear killers in camo in the movie. But he's wearing it very well, and it's also like baggy, and it's like very fun, and I like that a lot. So
okay, Fit Check. My favorite was Pearline's outfit at the end, also around the time when Ghost Dog died. She was wearing kind of like a, I guess like olive green like jacket and pants, like kind of set that went together, and a little shirt with like a dragon on it, which is super cute. I liked it mostly because, Mars actually pointed this out when we were first going over our Fit Check options. I didn't even really think about like the dragon, but just the fact that kind of is like reflective of the whole samurai esque vibe of the film. Mm-hmm. Also, I just thought it was cute that it like matched, and it was like, that color looked nice on her. I think she's a cute little girl, so I just liked that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. This was our assignment on Ghost Dog.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.